Hello, welcome to the video. Today I'm going to talk about 4 bands that most people hate, but which I secretly enjoy. If you've not watched any of my videos before, my name's Jim Driver and I've been involved in the music business since 1972 on the fringes, and so I do know a bit about what I'm talking about. Part of what I do is I provide some personal recollections and personal insights, so you're not going to hear this anywhere else. So stick around till the end and I think you're going to be surprised, be informed and hopefully entertained. And I think you're going to find out things you didn't know. Hopefully you can find your new favourite band right here. Whoopee! So let's not waste any more time, let's get started. So who's first then?
Here we come, walking down the street.
You're going to be amazed when I say,
Hey, with the Monkees.
but don't switch off now. Stay with me while I explain. For a start, the 2 things you think you know that make the Monkees so awful were that they couldn't play their instruments and that they're supposed to be ripping off the Beatles. Well, neither of those is actually true. First of all, there were 437 people auditioned for the Monkees, and 4 of them obviously got through, and all 4 were previously musicians of some kind. Peter Tork and Michael Nesmith were the main musicians, and Mickey Dolenz had been in a band, and Davy Jones had been on Broadway starring as the Artful Dodger in the musical Oliver.
Anything for you, dear, anything for you, mean everything to me.
So they were all musical, so that's like a load of bunkum. And the second thing is, they were first thought of in 1962, and a guy thought of the idea of having a band he's going to feature, but the networks didn't like it. And then it is true that when the Beatles had their 2 films and they were huge in the States after that, and Beatlemania and all that stuff, the network thought that they would go back to this idea and they would feature a band. And the strange thing about it was, the only person in the band who had any knowledge of playing the drums was actually Davy Jones, but the producers wouldn't let him play drums because they didn't want him stuck at the back all the time. So Mickey Dolenz was thought to be the least photogenic, so he ended up playing drums. And also Peter Tork was actually a very good keyboard player and guitarist, but he ended up playing bass for some reason. And Michael Nesmith, who wasn't quite as good as Peter Tork, ended up as the lead guitarist, and obviously Davy Jones was at the front banging his tambourine and stuff. There was a guy there, he was the head of music at the studio, and he stopped them doing everything they wanted to do. They were doing well. They eventually ended up playing all their own instruments and even writing their own songs. They still use really good songs, that's the thing, but even when they were playing and working on other people's songs,
Oh, and our good time starts and ends without dollar want to spend.
they were really good. And the strange thing is that the Beatles actually liked them.
The thing is that if the Monkees weren't around, there'd be no one to watch on TV. And I want to see a nice program, and their program is better than most things on TV. You know?
Peter Tork played on Wonderwall, George Harrison's project, and Michael Nesmith was told by John Lennon that they were the next comedy geniuses after the Marx Brothers, and he never missed watching their show. And did you know the Monkees were big fans of the Jimi Hendrix Experience, who were just starting out in 1967 and gave them their first big break? Now, I put on Peter Tork many years later in February 2007, and it was Peter Tork and his band who were called what were they called? The Shoe Blue Suede Shoes was the thing. Shoe Suede Blues. He wasn't really friendly, but again, he wasn't unfriendly. Bearing in mind that he was a huge star back in the 1960s, and he was coming to play this tiny club, which frankly is a bit dirty and stuff and quite small, but he did like the grand piano and he did play that. The interspersed Monkees songs in between his new songs. It was great. I mean, I enjoyed it. It was very low profile because, I mean, for some reason, this is what I mean, the Monkees were like vilified in this country, and the only people who seemed to like them were the Beatles and me. So there you go. That's the first one. And who's next, we're going to ask? It's Tyrannosaurus Rex. Notice I say Tyrannosaurus Rex and not T-Rex. There's a reason for that.
Hold on, just a second.
I'd just like to say at this stage that if you're not already subscribed, it would be a great help to me and also to yourself, I think, because then it means you would get instant access if you could subscribe. That would be great. And like if you like them, and also share them with your friends. If you don't like them, share them with people that you don't like. You know it makes sense. And now back to the music. When people think about Tyrannosaurus Rex or T-Rex as they became, they think about the glitter, the glam, the posturing, Marc Bolan in, I don't know, platforms with glitter all over his face. But for me, it was not like that. I can remember as a schoolboy listening to the early Tyrannosaurus Rex albums, which was just him and Steve Peregrine Took. And it was basically just the two of them. It was him and his voice and his guitar. His voice would quiver and waver, and Steve Peregrine Took would bash the bongos. The best of it was magical. They did stray a bit into the whimsical. I didn't really go for the Tolkien stuff, but the best of those years was truly magical. And it fitted with a teenage boy growing up in the 1960s. And then as the 60s became the 70s, Marc Bolan fell out with Steve Peregrine Took, and he found new people to work with, and eventually they became electric. And he shortened the name to T-Rex. Now, it didn't all go horribly wrong then. I think the T-Rex album of 1970 and the Electric Warrior that followed in 71 and Slider in 72 had some great songs, but slowly he was going commercial. And I think that, to be honest with you, I enjoyed that transition. People said, oh, it's getting too commercial, but little did we know. It then went totally mad with the glitter and the glam stuff. I basically lost patience with it all and I went away. But then the last album he did, Dandy in the Underworld, he pulled it back and it became more sophisticated, and I really enjoyed that album. The title track itself is a bit of a classic for me. Exalted companion of T-Rex nights, 'cause he's a dandy in the underworld. And that's why I think that Tyrannosaurus Rex and T-Rex should be resuscitated. You should check them out, because I think you'll find some diamonds in there. Another band I was very keen on in my school years was Spirit, a band from California. Nature's way of telling you, dying tree. Led by a guy called Randy California, whose real name was Randy Wolf, but he used to play with Jimi Hendrix when Jimi Hendrix was called Jimmy James. I think his band was called Jimmy James and the Blue Flames. Now, Randy California was called Randy California by Jimi Hendrix to differentiate him from a guy called Randy who came from Texas, who was Randy Texas, and he adopted that name. But he was only 15 at the time, and when Jimi Hendrix came to Britain to basically become the phenomenon of Jimi Hendrix, he asked the young Randy California to come with him and play with him. But unfortunately, because he's only 15, he had to go back to California. So what did he do? He formed Spirit, a band with his future father-in-law, Ed Cassidy, on drums, who'd previously played with Cannonball Adderley, Jerry Mulligan and the Harmonious Monk, amongst others. And together with a few more people, they formed Spirit. Now, the album I really got into, which I still to this day is an absolute classic, called The 12 Dreams of Dr. Sardonicus. The first track on the first Spirit album, Fresh Garbage, is about the environment and how we've got to save the environment. And The 12 Dreams of Dr. Sardonicus, that's the overwhelming theme of that album. So they were way ahead of their time. There's a track on Spirit's first self-titled album called Taurus. There have been several legal actions about this because everybody, including me, thinks it sounds very much like the riff in Stairway to Heaven. Now, Led Zeppelin supported Spirit several times when they first went to the States. They used to play Fresh Garbage from the same album live on stage, so it's a pretty good chance that they have heard it. Although, in court cases, both Robert Plant and Jimmy Page have said that they had never heard it prior to writing and recording Stairway to Heaven. And there have been numerous legal actions and they've all failed. Now, I can't believe... Well, anyway, let's just say that maybe Randy California was a better songwriter than members of Led Zeppelin. And leave it at that.
Ain't no rhyme, ain't no reason. Join the fighter called treason.
Back in 1978, I saw that Spirit were playing at the Rainbow Theatre, backed by alternative TV and an up-and-coming band called The Police. And I went to that show, and Spirit were just the three-piece, and they were absolutely sensational. I mean, the place just erupted. Even though, for me, the punk thing had taken over, alternative TV were magnificent. The Police were okay. I put The Police on myself a few times around that time. I did try and book this for the Chancellor Hall, Chelmsford, but unfortunately they couldn't fit the date in because they were already doing one in Colchester, I think. So there you go. That's me and Spirit. I thought that gig was fantastic, and unfortunately Randy California died in a terrible swimming accident. He saved his son from drowning off Hawaii, but unfortunately couldn't be saved himself. And that was the end of Randy California and Spirit, R.I.P. So who's next then? Well, I'm going to surprise you yet again. I keep surprising you, don't I? And say status quo. Only joking. Anyway, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time.